Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Mark Coletta. I am here with Kathy Vitello, and we are from Plan of Mass Rhode Island. And we're going to talk today a little bit about special needs trusts and the peace of mind a special needs trust provides you as a family member. I ask that today, if you have any questions at all, please put them into the chat. We will answer those at the very end. We're going to go through a little bit of presentation, talk about some of the basics, and then hopefully get to the questions and answer anything that you need. So I'm going to share my screen and go through this presentation. Bear with me for 1 second. Big thank you to NAMI for putting this together. They are a great partner of ours, and we really appreciate their support and help.
So by the time we get done with this, we hope that we have gained a deeper understanding of what a special needs trust is and what the benefits are of a special needs trust and how they could benefit you and your family members, as well as what the duties are to be a professional trustee.
Right.
So
this is us, a little bit of background. Kathy is a licensed social worker, as well as the director of operations for Plan of Mass Rhode Island since 2013. So plenty of experience. And I come from a banking background and have been with them since last year. So learning objectives. So today we just want to gain a deeper understanding of what a special needs trust is, why it's beneficial to you and your family, and the responsibilities of a professional trustee. And again, any of these questions that you may have now or throughout the process, just drop them in the chat box.
So Plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, who are we? So Plan stands for Plan Lifetime Assistance Network of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. We are a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization, and we serve as a professional trustee for special needs trusts in the state of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, as well as other states, but primarily those two states. Our history actually dates back to the early 1960s, wherein a group of parents, they got together, they worried about who was going to take care of their children when they were gone, who was going to advocate for them, who was going to kind of provide that oversight. Those same fears, concerns, anxieties, the things that make you lose sleep at night are the same conversations that we have today with families as well. So we will talk a little bit about how beneficial it is to have a professional trustee.
So we're going to play a quick little video for you. It gives a little outline of Plan, our background, what we focus on, and how we can help you and your family.
Plan is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were incorporated in 1971, and we serve over 750 beneficiaries.
That helps people with disabilities to live well by providing social services, preserving assets, and protecting benefits. We do this through our social workers and through our national trust assets.
When I first got involved, Plan was pretty much in its original state. It was board run. There really just one staff person, and that was an interesting plan. It was part of a parent-driven insurance policy. And these were families that were connected with ARC of Massachusetts, formerly called March, and that they decided that they wanted to have a way to, when they were gone themselves, the children were being in care of the state. That's how it was in the old days. Most folks with developmental disability were in state care and institutional care. They thought that they wanted to be sure that the state did what it was supposed to do, and so they organized kind of a self-funded insurance plan, and that the guarantee was that the original form of plan that they would have folks like myself and other board people who check in, making sure that the state did what it was supposed to do.
I don't actually go back to the very beginning of Plan 50 years ago. I became involved with Plan about 25 years ago. And at that point, some of us from the mental health arena were looking for ways to establish a pool of trust. In our search, we came up and found Mark Trust. So when I began to be part of the board of Mark Trust 25 years ago, there were 6 or 8 people involved, and most of them were parents, children with developmental disabilities. There was an investment advisor involved with the board. It was not on the board. And at that point, there were hopefully about 20 beneficiaries, maybe 15. And there was not a whole lot of money in accounts, so they were all individual special needs. So since then, we switched over to developing a pool special needs trust and began to take in more and more beneficiaries. There's some major significant beneficiaries along the way, and so that began to increase the value of beneficiaries that we took on hand. And so it began to grow from that point forward.
We have beneficiaries of all ages, all sorts of disabilities, and all sorts of living situations. We have social workers on staff, and they work with the beneficiaries and their support systems on how to utilize the funds in the trust while protecting their public benefits. And in order to do that, the social workers need to know the beneficiaries, right? So we go where they are, we look at their living situation. We want to make sure that the needs are being met, they're living in a safe environment, that they're accessing the benefits they're entitled to, and the services that they're entitled to, and then looking at what are some of their wishes, some of their wants, what are their immediate needs, and what are their anticipated needs down the road. I had one beneficiary who was living in a long-term care facility. However, he was on the younger side, and he was a quadriplegic. And one of his ways of coping was he got out work. This gentleman taught himself how to paint and draw. He sent us pictures and hanging in our office. And he once wrote us a letter telling us that we understood, we really truly understood that it was hard.
We have been able over the 50 years to put some money aside into a reserve fund, and in 2019, the board of directors at that time voted to donate a certain portion to other nonprofits that serve like constituents. So we are so excited to be able to do that. We have chosen to partner with many organizations, but 5 large donations that we've made in the past year to Special Olympics of Massachusetts, Best Buddies of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, the Northeast Arc, the Carroll Center for the Blind, and AA. And it's really important for us to reach out to these other organizations, especially given what's happened with COVID. We were in a position to help these organizations to continue to provide the hands-on services that they provide. We are in the business of trust administration and coordination of social services, and these organizations are working with people with disabilities day to day. So we want to be sure that we help as much as we can.
These are children here, the plan, because both have the same goal, enhancing the lives of people in communities we serve. Our partnership with plan is just starting, and we're so excited for what the future holds.
Mike Kelly here from Special Olympics Massachusetts. We want to thank you guys and congratulate you so much on 50 years. We want to express our most deepest thank yous to you guys. We cannot believe with so much support that we got from you. Otherwise, we would have had so much confidence to get back onto the athletic fields.
Thank you to plan and happy anniversary. Best Buddies is so grateful for all of your support. Your generosity helps Best Buddies programs run. It helps us create a more inclusive community for people with disabilities. We couldn't help as many people without the support of them. So thank you again. Best Buddies loves you.
Our focus on service. A lot of plan branches around the country and other sorts of folks that do this sort of thing. The emphasis isn't on service, and I believe we're unique in a fashion that we emphasize case management and social work support, and that because it isn't just about the money, it's about making sure this money goes where it's intended to, it serves a proper purpose, takes care of folks the way they should be taken care of, and that the proper people are associated with the folks in need.
The peace of mind as a parent is extremely important because obviously you don't all know how long it's really going to take. My daughter does have a sibling, my son, lives in New York. So for him to be able to provide something to everybody, benefits would have to also working with the plan and the service coordinator actually take care of the sister would be longer term peace of mind is that it doesn't depend just on him. He can have his own life, he can do what he wants to do and still have a way to help his sister. And so that's the peace of mind I look to have a helpful place. Don't worry about what happens. You can just live life today. It's the way I'm on.
What we provide for beneficiaries is trust management. Beyond that, we're interested in a life plan for our beneficiaries so that our goal is to help people have quality of life and to live life well, both on a daily basis and for the future. And plan's been there for 50 years. We hope to be there for another 50 years to help our beneficiaries manage their day-to-day issues as well as have an opportunity to plan for the future and have that.
So over the next 50 years, I really hope that we are able to expand our footprint, to double our footprint. We are hoping to be the go-to organization for special needs trusts. There are people that stay up at night worrying about what's going to happen to their loved one, and we are the answer to that. And all they have to do is call us and ask about what we do. We can help them on this journey. And then they have that peace of mind knowing that when they're gone, their child or loved one is taken care of.
So our mission, we proudly serve people with disabilities, lifelong or related to illness, injury, or age, helping to preserve assets, to protect benefits, and to live well. And we do live that mission.
The mission is very important to us. So just to understand a little bit, in 1993, Clinton was president and he signed within the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, which blah, 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 it's referred to as OBRA. And it's within this act that the regulation lies that people who have a disability and are on public benefits or need to obtain public benefits are able to have what they call a special needs or a supplemental needs trust set up. The funds are available to supplement their needs. We hope at the end of the day also improve quality of life while they maintain all their public benefits or become eligible for it. So if we think about, planning for the future, if we want to think about it in terms of building a house, we're going to go get a set of house plans. We're going to meet with an architect. We're going to, develop a budget for this. And we need to consider that there'll be inflation through the years. And then we need to look at, like, do we need any consulting experts in here? So within estate planning for somebody with a disability, that would be maybe talking to an attorney that specializes in special needs, a financial planner, and then, the special needs trust. We would be one of the tools in that toolbox going forward. So it is a fiduciary relationship between the beneficiary and the trust. But as we said earlier, we're unique because we're staffed with social workers.
So what does a special needs trust actually do? It protects the assets, preserves eligibility to public benefits. So if an individual has over the asset limits that are allowed by some of these public benefits, such as SSI or Mass Health, this allows them to put that money into a trust account that will not count against them and jeopardize their benefits. It allows plans for the future of the beneficiary and creates peace of mind for the family member and caregiver. So as you've heard in the video, allowing a sibling to have a sibling relationship and not a trustee relationship with their brother or sister. Whenever you put money into the mix, it creates conflicts and issues and allows that brother, sister, uncle, aunt to have the relationship that they should have as a family member and an advocate and not have to be the bad guy that tells them they can't spend money on X, Y, or Z. That's our job.
Yeah, because, there's a lot of rules and regulations that go around having a special needs trust. which we'll get into in a little while, but removing that, money creates conflict in any relationship. It doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not. It can create conflict. And that proper planning is really important. So, we had a beneficiary, Jane, whose mom and dad, they did do all of those things. They met with their attorney, they met with their financial planner, but they chose a family member to be the trustee for the special needs trust. By the time that trust was funded, that particular family member had so many of their own health issues, they really felt like they couldn't take on that responsibility. So they began a search. And one of the reasons they came to plan was specifically because of the social work piece. But it was a lot of work for her trying to find somebody.
Yeah, so in addition to that, it provides a beneficiary the resources they need to improve their quality of life. And that is the main focus of what we do here.
Mhm. So when we look at public benefits, we've had conversations with people through the years who'll say, oh, I don't need those, I have plenty of money, and my child is good. But when we look at the value of those public benefits, there's a great deal of monetary value to them. If you're on, say, supplemental Social Security income or Medicaid, and you're in a group home or a facility, these are what we call means-tested benefits, which means they're looking at your assets and your income. So in the state of Massachusetts, you can't have more than $2,000 in assets. In Rhode Island, it's $4,000. So that alone can be worth, the SSI benefit alone over a 40-year period could be $340,000, $400,000 that they give out. There's many programs out there, day programs, partial hospitalizations, group homes, where you really need to have the public benefits to get into them. A lot of them won't take you in without your Medicaid benefit. So if we, I read an article from the Journal of Disabilities Policy, and in that article, it says the average person with a disability requires approximately $18,000 more a year to live the same lifestyle you and I would live. And as needs go up, that amount of money will go up as well.
Types of special needs trust that we offer. So we have first party or a D4A trust. So what is that? That is the individual. This is their own money. So if we'll say Joe needed a special needs trust because he was going on public benefits and he had $50,000, that is above the $2,000 limit. Joe would put his own money into a first party trust, and anything above that $2,000 that goes into the trust would not affect his benefits. That includes a Medicaid payback if you are in Mass Health. So at the end of life, they will claim any funds that they paid out on their behalf. Then we have a third party standalone trust. So that is a trust that is drafted by an attorney, and they name a trustee, hopefully a professional trustee. And that is a trust where someone else funds the trust for the individual who has the special needs. So that could be a parent, grandparent, friend, aunt, uncle, brother, sister. They are the donor who puts the money into the trust for that individual. Now, those have no Medicaid payback, and those are that's the preferred method. And through proper estate planning, you can accomplish that. But it is always funded by a third person, and it protects the benefits that they have. And then there's the pooled trust, or a D4C, which these are, the pooled aspect of it is for investment purposes. And the great thing about a pooled trust is it's cost effective, because here at Plan we have no minimums. So you can get the same level of investment management that typically requires $500,000 to $1 million in assets to qualify for, with no minimum at all. And the assets are pulled together, so you get more bang for your buck when it comes to the level of service that you're getting. Each beneficiary has their own sub-account, so it's not like your money gets intermingled and we can't figure it out. No, each beneficiary has their own sub-account, and it's invested according to an individual strategy that is based on the beneficiary's life expectancy, their disability, their spend rate, age, a number of different things.
So when we look at these different types of trusts, when Mark talks about the first party, the D4A, or the third party standalone, that means that you have one beneficiary, one trust document, and one trustee. When you talk about the pool, we already have a master trust in place. Social Security has already approved that trust document. So you're joining the master trust. That's one of the big differences. The other option is you can set this vehicle up. It's called a future funded trust. And you can set the vehicle up. The account will be in place, but won't be funded until the time comes that your estate or somebody else's estate wants to put the funds in the trust. So when we think about benefits and meeting those requirements for benefits, it's a night. Anybody who's applied for benefits is going to agree. It's a nightmare applying for benefits. They don't make it easy for you. But one of the things to keep in the back of your mind is that if you're on benefits and you lose your benefits, it can be even more difficult to get back onto those benefits. So we want to be, that's why a third party trust that is funded, the money never goes into the beneficiary's hands. It goes right into the trust, so it's never considered their asset. There's no transfer penalty and no look back period with it.
So what do we mean by that? So ways to fund a trust. So on that third party, which is the preferred method, the way if you can do it, that is great. That's what we want to see. That the ways to fund that is through life insurance, which that typically happens on these future funded trusts. So you establish the trust. You don't need to put anything in it right away. You can just to see how it works and get a feel for it. But it could then be funded with a life insurance policy that the funds go directly to the trust. They never go into the beneficiary's hands themselves. And that way you maintain that third party status without any kind of payback. And then inheritances. This is the big one that we get most of. And through proper estate planning, that this allows the funds that come from, grandparent, parent to flow directly to the trust. And again, never touch that beneficiary's hands. So they never have to claim that as an asset when asked if they're over their $2,000 limit. It avoids that completely, goes right to the trust. And again, that's through proper estate planning. Beneficiary designation is a big thing. We want to ensure that you're not naming your child or loved one who are on benefits directly as a beneficiary, because God forbid anything were to happen to you, that money is going to go right to them, and it's going to be an asset.
So if you have, several children and you want to divide things up evenly, what you would do is you would specify for the child with a disability that portion would go to the third party special needs trust for the benefit of, so that, again, like Mark said, it doesn't go into the person's hands, it goes right into the trust. Having a first party trust is not the worst thing in the world. I met with a family a while ago who called that the uh-oh trust, because family members didn't realize that her child had a disability, was on benefits. This was going to impact the benefits. So it just means that at the end of that person's life, if anything's left, Medicaid is entitled to it.
Yeah, so that's the unplanned inheritances, and that's the settlements, which is the big one. So if there's an injury settlement, if there's any kind of legal decision in their favor where they get a financial reward, that is unavoidable. There's no way for that to flow through the trust. Unfortunately, we'll have to go to them. But again, a first party trust isn't the end of the world. It just creates an issue at end of life with Medicaid payback. So now that you know more about special needs trust, how do you choose the right trustee? What needs to go into that decision? Trustee considerations. What services needed now and then in the future? That's the big question in the future. As Kathy mentioned, we had many clients who named siblings, aunts, uncles, friends as trustee, and they have their own lives. They have their own challenges, whether it's health challenges, they're getting older, or it's just the ability to keep up with the regulation changes that all these benefit providers have. And that's a full-time job. We have a whole department here dedicated to understanding that and staying on top of it. To ask someone with a full-time job and kids and other distractions, it's a lot to ask, and it's really a challenge. And what technical skills are needed? So again, the ability to understand what distributions that are made are going to affect this person's benefits. Each and every distribution that we make on their behalf is reviewed to ensure that there's going to be no negative effects on the person's benefits. And it can be a full-time job. Individual in mind, do they have the time to dedicate to it? They may think so, and this happens a lot. And we get phone calls where like, I didn't realize this was such an undertaking. I need to get out of this. There's filing requirements, there's tax requirements, so there's a lot that goes into it. And the trustee can be a nonprofit like plan. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and that allows us to really approach this role as trustee in a different way than a typical bank or an attorney would, where they're a transactional trustee. You're a individual on a piece of paper and they issue a check and that's all they see. Whereas we are a nonprofit organization focusing on the quality of life of each and every beneficiary, staffed with licensed social workers.
So the benefits Mark just went over, we removed responsibility from family members, and this keeps, hopefully relationships intact. So we have a beneficiary that we've worked with for several years. Family, again, they did all their planning and they asked their sibling to be the trustee for his sister, and the sibling moved across the country and really couldn't do it from across the country. And eventually the family ended up picking us again because of the social work piece, but also to remove that responsibility. They wanted to make sure that she had a good relationship with her siblings. She could spend holidays with them, could go complain about how mean the trustee is because we won't buy a Porsche, those kinds of things. So
yeah. And then the security of knowing that the funds are used for the sole benefit of that individual. So, not to mention the benefit side of things, it protects that individual from be taking advantage of potentially. And that is a real concern for a lot of people who have relatives and loved ones with disabilities. There are bad people out there that will try to take advantage of that and understand that this person may have, whether it's a mental health challenge or a disability, that they could really weasel their way in there to try to get funds from.
Vulnerable population. And so, through the years, Joan and I have seen multiple families where we've had people come into the trust because half of the money has been exploited, or we've had people who come into the trust, the family has set it up and they say that they want the funds to go into the trust, but the executor at the time will say, oh no, I changed my mind, I think I can do better than that. So this is a way to make sure that your wishes are also followed through on, that the things that you want this money to be used for are the goals.
Exactly. So professional trustee services plan. So what is included? Annual statements, processing of weekly disbursements. So if you have a request for an item to be purchased, it gets processed weekly at a minimum. Tax information related to the trust collected and forwarded to our tax preparer. The tax forms are sent out. So for first parties, it's a grantor letter, and for third parties, it's a K-1. The trust is responsible for filing taxes in 1041. And then,
but it's not the individual beneficiary taxes. It's
correct.
The taxes on the pool.
The trust.
Right. So the grantor letter or K-1 would have to go to a tax professional to see if the person needed to file.
Yep. And then social workers, as we talked about, we will talk about a little bit more. And then the professionally managed investments of the funds, which is a huge point that really does. Again, coming from a banking background, the fact that someone who has $10,000 can get the same level of investment management advice and knowledge at their fingertips as someone who has $10 million is a huge bonus that just allows these funds to last longer than they normally would.
Yeah. So here at Plan, we really kind of take a very holistic approach to being professional trustees. We really want to know who our beneficiaries are so that we can serve them well. So it's an all-inclusive program. The social work staff is just part of our program. The social workers are on staff. It's not an additional fee. And we, the management fee, which is 3% annually, and it's divided into quarters, and it's taken out, that quarter based on the balance. And it covers everything. It covers your social work. It covers your investments. It covers the annual accounting and the preparation of the tax. All of that stuff is all inclusive into the 3%. So it makes us very cost effective because, as Mark said, and he can speak more to this, you have to have $1 million to go to a bank, and they're not really savvy about benefits and those kinds of things. And they'll charge you for every check and phone call.
Yeah, and an attorney will charge you billable hours. If you have a question and you need to, figure this out before you make a distribution, the attorney is going to charge for every single phone call you make. They're going to charge for every meeting that you have in person. They're going to, any time that they spend thinking about your trust, they're going to charge for. So, we're a one fee, that you get everything with that. So unlimited access, unlimited calls, and some people take advantage of that. And some people don't. It's really what level of service that you need, but the fact of the matter is you get whatever level you do need that we provide.
In the role of the family members, so when you have a professional trustee, then the role of the family really becomes the individual's advocate, their best advocate, and their best form of support, their support persons. I think that, if you watch the video with us, that, one of our board members is a family member of somebody with a mental health issue. And he does speak to that in the video about the peace of mind it provides the sibling. The sibling who is married and has a family and lives in a different state, but maintains a really nice relationship with his sister and is there to provide the support. And the trustee is responsible to make sure that the benefits are in place and that the funds are used appropriately.
And again, we're talking about money and what that does to people and families and the challenges it can create. It very rarely is it worth it to have that family member take on that extreme
and knowing
challenge.
your benefits. So if I use for an example your SSI benefit, your supplemental Social Security income, that is a benefit that has been designed specifically to help with rent, food, and utilities. And if you receive any assistance in those areas, rent, food, or utilities, you're risking a decrease in that monthly check. And for many parents, they go in and it's my child. They live at home, don't charge rent, eats dinner with the family, and bing, they just lost 30% of their check. People who live in subsidized housing, there was a big lawsuit, I don't know, mid 2000, maybe 14, 15, somewhere around there. And what the federal courts decided was that any regular reoccurring payment that came out of a trust could be added as income. It's all these like little rules, regulations that if you're not aware of them, you can really jeopardize somebody's benefits. And as I said earlier, trying to get back on after losing them is even harder than applying in the first place. Service coordinators, oh, my favorite subject, guys. So service coordinators are all licensed social workers. And collectively, there's probably over 200 years of experience in the office at this point because we've grown a bit. So we currently have 9, I think, almost 10 social workers on staff. In each and every beneficiary is assigned to a social worker. That's their primary contact throughout the life of the trust. The social worker will meet with the beneficiary and whoever their support systems are. Once the trust is funded, they do an in-person visit because we want to know the beneficiary. We want to see where they're living. We want to make sure that their needs are being met, that in a safe and clean environment. We're looking at their benefits. Are they accessing everything they're entitled to? We're looking at their immediate needs And then we're looking at maybe some needs down the road. And then we look at wish list. What are some of the things that you would like to do with these funds? I mean, we've had cases where, people take art lessons. We have artwork around the office from beneficiaries that have done art lessons. We've done music therapy, Reiki, massage therapy, pet visits. We come up with we want people to use these funds. That's what they're there for. And sometimes we can come up with some creative ways to do that. The social worker maintains contact with the beneficiary and their supports throughout the life of the trust. In that very first meeting, after they kind of assess everything, they're going to develop what we call a spending plan, which is just a guide, and it's a live document that's constantly reviewed and updated, but it's just a guide as to how we anticipate using the funds. And with all the experience that our social workers have, they know like the benefits. They are well versed in the world of disabilities so that we can help make sure that people are reaching their potential and getting the best service possible.
And the guidance that they give as far as, they've been in the community for a very long time. They know what programs are out there that might benefit this person. They know if, they need a social program, where to go, who to turn to. Plan as a whole has partnerships with some of the best organizations in the state. Northeast Arc, Best Buddies, Special Olympics. We have really close relationships with them that give us access to a lot of the programs out there that can assist with folks that, NAMI is another one that, the programs that they offer are incredible. So just the ability to be able to recommend and point people in the right direction when sometimes they don't know. So that experience is,
And helping
the value.
beneficiaries look at options. We have somebody who has some major mental health issues that really interfere with her day-to-day functioning, but through the support of her service coordinator, they've been able to figure out ways to utilize the trust without really having a severe impact on her benefits. Sometimes we're looking for ways to get around those rules. So yeah, we had another beneficiary who, when they joined the trust, the family said, yeah, good luck getting in to see him. He doesn't let anybody through the door. And our social worker was persistent, and she, put the effort in, spent the time. They developed a relationship, and they got to a point where she was able to bring somebody else in, and that person who was a companion was able to get the beneficiary back out in the community. They would go out 2 or 3 times a week and go shopping, run errands, social events, and also helped clean out the apartment because he was a hoarder, was threat of eviction, and they got shore service in there, brand new furniture with the use of his funds, and really improved the quality of this man's life.
Kathy has a million of these stories, and if you want to hear more, feel free to give us a call after the presentation. But yeah, it's so many great things that can be done just by these awesome social workers. So you decided that you want to move forward with plan. How do you get started? So the first thing is check out our website. You should do that anyway, just to get some more information, see what we're about. Then choose an attorney to prepare the special needs trust application documents. Now that's not required, but these are legal documents. So we strongly suggest that you do work with an attorney. If you do not have one, please let us know. We can recommend some of the best special needs attorneys in the state. Then you deposit funds into the trust and then meet with your service coordinator. So it's simple as easy as that. It's not a complex process. It is a big decision, so you should think about it and review it. But once you decided this is what you want to do, it's very, very easy, and we'll hold your hand through the whole process.
Oh, and everybody's favorite subject is ABLE these days, achieving a better life experience. It doesn't have to be one or the other. These are actually a great partnership between these 2 types of accounts. So ABLE, which was enacted, I think, in 2016, but it didn't really open in every state. It was after that Massachusetts allowed it, but they're set up just like the 529s, managed by MEFA and John Hancock. And ABLE is for what is considered a qualified disability expense. ABLE has what they call a Medicaid clawback, which is different from the Medicaid payback. So the payback is anything that's been paid out during your lifetime. The clawback is from the date that your ABLE account is established. If anything happens to you, then Medicaid can come in and go back to the date the account was established to be paid back. ABLE will suspend your benefits when you reach 100,000. You won't lose them, but they will suspend them until the account drops below 100,000. You will lose them if you reach 500,000. The special needs trust has no limit. You can put 10,000, you can put 10 million. It doesn't really matter. We don't have a cap on it. And we're not limited to what is considered a qualified medical disability expense. You can go on a vacation, you can take a class, you can, get camera equipment and all kinds of things like that. So they really work well together. But one of the really nice features is, a few minutes ago, I just talked about your SSI, your supplemental security income, right? Rent, food, and utilities. Well, that's considered a qualified medical disability expense. So you could take funds from your trust, your special needs trust, annually and put them into your ABLE account or twice a year. ABLE, you're only allowed to put whatever the gift tax rate is. And in January, it went up to 17,000. And the only exception to that is if the beneficiary themselves is working, they can put approximately up to another, 1,300 or something in there, if they're working. So it's, a great way for them to partner. You're only allowed one ABLE account. So if grandma in Wisconsin wants to open an ABLE account and you live in Massachusetts, then you can't open a second account. It can only be one account. You can have as many trust accounts as you want. Wouldn't recommend it, but you can have as many. We have many people who have first and third party trust accounts. So,
And they just increase the age on ABLE, correct?
it's not,
It's not enacted yet.
it's not enacted. So we're currently, your disability has to have been determined prior to the age of 26. I think in 2025, it's projected to go up to 46, but currently you have to have been determined disabled prior to the age of 26 in order to have the ABLE account.
Yeah, it's definitely a good move that they increase that, especially for individuals with mental health that may not appear till later. So,
Right, or people who get in accidents and get brain
Yeah.
injuries.
So that is our presentation. Thank you all so much. Here's our email addresses and phone numbers. Please, if you have any questions, I'll get to the chat in a minute and see what questions are there. But after this presentation, if you think of something later down the road you want to reach out, don't hesitate. We offer free consultations every time. Call us anytime, email us anytime. We are happy.
Or even if you just want to talk about your own individual situation, honestly, feel free to reach out. You can call or email as much as you need to. I know I think of questions at 2 o'clock in the morning and have to write them down because I forgot to ask them that day. So don't hesitate. There's several of us here who can hop on a call with people or answer emails. We're happy to do that. We understand what a big commitment this is. And as Mark said, you're not required in the pool to have legal counsel, but we do encourage it. You're signing legal documents. The trust is irrevocable once it's funded. So it's important to have an attorney eyeball that. It's also important to pick an attorney who specializes in special needs and elder law. It's a very, very specialized, complex area. I know that you can open a phone book or look at a billboard or a newspaper and you see all kinds of advertisements. I do trust, I do estates, but you really want somebody who's been certified. And we're more than happy if you don't have anybody to give you a recommendation for somebody who works in your area. Lawyers are like doctors. They have areas of specialty. So if I break my leg, I'm not going to have my eye doctor set my leg. I'm going to go find an orthopedist. You want to keep that in mind when you're picking out your lawyer as well.
Right. I don't see any questions yet. Does anyone have any? Let's see. Right. Yeah. So,
Well, like we said, if you want to discuss your own individual situation, please feel free to reach out and call. Or send us an email and we can set something up. We happy to do that.
I'm gonna try this, Marie. I'm gonna see if I can allow you to talk.
Ooh,
Can you hear me now?
I can.
You know what? I was trying to chat and it was saying chat disabled.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So I don't know if that's on my end or your end.
I think it's open now, so, because I got a couple in here now, but, feel free to ask a question. We can answer it right now.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll just start with one and then I'll let other people go. So what if, so say I were to open up a special needs trust and fund it with my inheritance that I'll leave for my daughter who has mental illness. It's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I've passed away. The inheritance has gone into the special needs trust. What if she suddenly, thinks that she wants to build a rocket ship to take her to the moon and needs, $100,000 to do that? What is the gatekeeping that goes on with the social worker to prevent a damaging, purchase or expense?
yeah, that's an excellent question. And there's layers to that approval process. So it starts with the service coordinator who will work with her on a budget. Then it goes through layers here. There's a trust officer who puts the final stamp of approval. So yes, we would have discussions with her about the fact that that's not really a good fiduciary decision on our part, and what is it that she really wants to accomplish. And we would work through with her what it is that she's really trying to do.
And what if that person is, let's say, psychotic or manic and, really is having a tough time reasoning with people? What have you done in those situations?
So it depends, as you probably are aware, commitment regulations are difficult. You really have to prove it. But, if the person is involved with any of the, state agencies like DMH, we would reach out to that caseworker. Or one of the things I forgot to mention was when we do a future funded account, the social worker gets in touch with the donor, parents or grandparents, whoever, and we fill out what we call a life care plan. And it tells us all about you, all about the beneficiary, all about the supports in their life and all that stuff. So if there's people in there that we can reach out to, that's what we would do.
Okay.
Do you have another question, Marie?
Oh, yes. I was just curious where the surplus money came from to do all of those big donations. Did it have anything to do with the trustees' accounts?
So when somebody passes away and they have a first party account, that means that they were their own funds.
Yes.
The federal regulations say that we're allowed to retain a percentage, and we put that into a community fund, and that we support beneficiaries who have run out of funds or have very low accounts, as well as some of the organizations that have a very similar mission to ours.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. So, Richard, I see your question relates to the need of a conservator.
Can you give a little more detail as to what you're asking about the conservator?
I mean, if there is a need, we could assist in aligning you with an attorney that could file for the conservatorship.
Except for if the funds are in the trust, that where all the assets would be in the trust. So it would really be up to the trustee. And so you don't have to have a conservator with the trust.
Let's see. Let me see if I can get Penny has her hand raised.
And actually, is it Merrill?
Muriel, yeah, we'll actually, I'll send an email to everyone on this webinar Feel free to just reply back with some dates and times that work for you, and we can have a private session. And Penny, how are you?
Now,
Hi, we can hear you.
okay, yeah. I think similar to Marie, my question is, but it may be a little different. We have a daughter with serious mental health issues, and anytime money is brought up, she just yells and screams and just very difficult to deal with her. I'm kind of afraid for the social workers. So how do they deal?
Don't be afraid for the social workers, because we're all very experienced with many, many years of experience. And one of the reasons that this works is social workers, even though they're not providing clinical services, have the skill set to work with people that need limits and boundaries set.
Okay, well, that's good, because, just anytime it's brought up, she just goes ballistic, and yet she can't handle her own money, so it's very difficult. Okay.
It's a
Good,
lot
thank
harder
you.
when it's family as well.
Yes.
Just the familiarity with the family makes it, easier to lash out, whereas the social workers provide a, professional,
True.
in a way to, again, the experience is key. All right, Richard, I'm gonna put you in.
To minimize the chat.
Hi, Richard. I think you're on mute. There you go.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good, okay. I've been chasing this issue of a trust for a long time. I have a daughter who is basically a client of DMH, Department of Massachusetts Health, and I am dealing with the issue that in around 2005, she was put in a hospital and went from there into a group home where she's been for well over 10 years. One of the questions that I have has to do with that during the years that she was in the group home, the law changed so that you needed a separate conservator, and we didn't. This is one of the issues you brought up, which is staying track of what the latest laws are. And so we missed that as a family. And as a result, it's cost us a lot of money in legal fees to get that situation corrected. We are now being advised to put her assets into a something like a Plan of Massachusetts. I've had prior discussions with you guys, but I still am confused. She has, I don't know how to state this, and I probably need to talk in great detail with one of your experts, but she has, her assets are limited to two, I guess 401ks that came from her prior employment and before she became ill, plus she gets SSDI. And one of the issues that came up for several years, the use of her funds basically derived from the SSDI were not being reported on an annual basis. So that caused a problem because of the now need to have an annual financial report on the use of her funds. We fixed that problem, but what I was advised initially by our attorneys was that if we went with somebody like Plan of Mass, the need for, in fact, I'll read you what the statement said: no annual conservatorship, accounting, petitions, and legal filings. But I'm inclined to think that's not true. We could transfer all of her assets into Plan of Mass, but she would still receive her SSDI.
Correct.
SSDI, that money is used to buy her food and all her personal needs.
Right.
That account is in a joint account where my son, who is also her guardian, manages that account, and those funds are used to buy food and clothing and personal needs. And even if we went with Plan of Mass, I don't see how we would avoid continuing to have the need to do an annual financial report on the distribution or use of those funds during each year.
Right. So it's what it sounds like, what you're describing to me sounds like your son is actually considered what they call the representative payee. So
That,
She
yes,
can't
we
manage
didn't, we
funds on
didn't,
her own,
we
and so.
were, right, we were not
Like
familiar
it?
with that term originally, but effectively, that's what he is. He is her
Right,
rep payee, and I've looked into that, and we've even, she is a client of VinFin, which
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you're familiar with, and she's in one of their group homes. And
right.
they've even agreed that they would become the rep payee, but that
Uh-huh.
still doesn't obviate the fact that there's gonna be a need to account annually for how our SSDI funds are handled. And it
That's a
sounds like we
social
would,
security rule.
I beg your pardon?
That's a social security rule.
I'm
That-
sure it is.
Yeah,
So-
that comes from social security. So as
Yeah.
long as she has a rep payee, that report has to be filed.
No trust is gonna alleviate your reporting requirements for that.
So even if we moved her assets into Plan of Mass and she still received SSDI, whether VinFin becomes the rep payee or her brother continues as her rep payee, we would still have the annual requirement for that reporting. That's a key question, and it's very helpful to me to have you answer that. Because the balance of her assets are not great. It's not a lot of money. And, you know, she's a college graduate. Was a fabulous athlete as a child, but she's never going to come back to a normal existence like you and I have. Sadly, it isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to protect her, and I'm 86 years old, so I'm running out of time to get this problem fixed. So maybe what I should do, and I've tried talking with you guys before, and I wasn't as smart or dumb as I am now, but I need to do that again to make sure, to determine whether or not this is the right path to follow, because what I'm told is the process of getting the annual financial report in, if we continue to doing what we're doing now, is a very complicated process. It's not just, you know, sending in an annual report. It sounds like there's a lot of steps to it, but anyway, I need to make a decision. I'm running out of time. And
Yes,
I'm a high-tech guy, but my son is not, and I need to get things set up before I'm gone so that, because he will have difficulty handling this. So maybe you can suggest somebody on your staff that I should talk to, but it's gonna be a detailed technical discussion, not a.
So if you shoot Mark or I an email, Mark and I will coordinate a time to talk.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
great, that's great, because I
And
know.
I'll be emailing you, Richard, as well.
I want to protect her insurance and her, she's getting a fortune from the state in terms of living in a group home. I couldn't afford to do any of that stuff. She's getting wonderful benefits, and I have no complaint about that. But I gotta fix this problem now before it's too late. So I have a sense of urgency.
Okay, just reach out to one of us and we'll coordinate it.
All right, do I have your emails? Let's see.
So Mark's gonna email you.
Yeah,
And then
great.
you,
Thank you. Please do that and we'll get together.
Sounds
All
good.
righty.
Thanks.
Good program. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fiordaliza.
hi, how are you? You're muted.
Hey,
Hey.
hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi. Before anything, I just wanted to thank you so much. This presentation has been so informative. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. I was wondering, what is the relationship between plan and and I'm not sure what to call it, maybe a nursing home for someone who has a mental health condition and is now older? Like how would payments work maybe, or is there like a partnership between plan and some of those facilities?
Yeah, so she has someone who has a mental health issue, but they're older and they're in a assisted living facility. So how do we work with the assisted living facility, and how can we make payments to them?
So the short answer is probably. It depends on their benefits. And it depends on the assisted living. We do ask that people do use some of their income for that so that we can kind of maximize the life of the trust. A lot of folks in assisted livings are involved in some form of a Medicaid program. Typically, it's a PACE program. So it depends on how much PACE is giving them, but yeah, more than likely we do for a lot of folks.
Yeah, the majority of our clients are over the age of 65 and typically in some form of assisted living facility. So we have plenty of experience handling, any and all situations that come up regarding that.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Marie, did you have another question?
I do. I have two questions. The first one is, does the beneficiary have to remain living in the state of Massachusetts or Rhode Island? Or like, like say their sibling is moving across the country to California and they want to go be with their sibling, is that allowed?
Yes, we have beneficiaries in other states. The only catch to that is that their relationship with the social worker ends up being either on Zoom or the phone. But if we felt like they really needed it in person, we would utilize their trust and coordinate with an agency that's out in that area.
Okay, thank you. And
Wow.
then my second question is, in the 50 years or so that the plan has been in existence, the economy cycles up and down, has the value of the investment pool ever been lower than like the original principal contributed by the trustees? I'm sorry, by the beneficiaries' families, not the trustees, the beneficiaries' families.
So, yeah, so for instance, 2022 was a down year. So if you took a snapshot of the trust funds on January 1st, 2022 versus January 1st, 2023, it would be lower. However, over a 3, 5, and 7 year sample that we have, investment performance across all of our 7 different strategies that we employ typically have outperformed the annual fee, which is 3%. In some instances, it's, I think our growth and income strategy was 3.7% over the 3 year and 4.5% plus over the 5 year. So these aren't aggressive investment strategies. When the market goes up 30%, these do not go up 30%. They probably go up 5%. But when the market goes down 40%, these only go down 3 to 5%. So again, it's a more narrow investment window with less upside and less downside.
And do you do it like similar to 529s where it's age based? So if you're, 30 years old, your investment risk or portfolio is going to be different than someone who's 70 years old?
Yeah, so age is one factor. The disability the person has, life expectancy, the amount of money in the fund. So I mean, if it's a smaller fund, smaller account, you're not going to be as aggressive because you could lose it all. And yeah, so that is all taken into account, and a individualized investment strategy is made for each beneficiary.
Okay, and did you say you work with an investment bank, or is it all in-house within the government? I can't remember what you said.
So we work with Webster Wealth Management, which is they're a good-sized regional bank who has an excellent reputation for wealth management.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. All right, I think that is all. So again, thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure to do this. Great questions, really appreciate it. I'll be sending out an email to everybody. If you want to schedule a consultation, just reach back out and we'll get that booked. And if you have any questions, call, email anytime. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for spending the
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Okay.